Brewing Network.
My name is Justin Crosley. I'm your host in here today, and I am proud to introduce this next panel. I think that this topic is something that should be done every year, as a matter of fact. And what these two ladies next to me here is Stevie Calderola. Yeah, she's a president of the Ladies of Craft Beer, and next to her is Ginger Johnson with Women Enjoying Beer. And they're going to talk to you today about how to taste beer at the GABF. Well, it sounds simple, right? I think it's not so simple. I think it's an excellent topic to get into, and we're all going to see that guy stumbling out of here later who didn't pay attention to the how to drink beer at GABF.
You are so right.
Right? And he didn't get the most out of it, and he didn't taste the way and he's certainly not sitting in here.
He's out there somewhere.
So come on over and enjoy the conversation with Stevie and Ginger. Have a good time, ladies.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks, everybody, for taking time out of their fine festival. Thumbs up so far? Yes? Right on. Double thumbs up. I like that. Excellent. Well, my name is Ginger. Like he said, I started Women Enjoying Beer. We're a education and research company that helps engage more women in this incredible beverage that we know as beer. So keep evangelizing. My fabulous co-host, Stevie Calderola here, Ladies of Craft Beer, agreed to be my partner in crime. So we're going to go through. This is only a half an hour session. It's going to clip right along. The fabulous volunteers in this room are going to have 5 different beers to pour. So they're going to come through about every 5 minutes. And we're going to go through a process called CAMFA. It's something that I developed for Women Enjoying Beer, and it stands for
Ladies of Craft Beer as well, and everybody else who's drinking any type of beer.
Absolutely. So CAMFA is CAMFA, and that stands for color, aroma, mouthfeel, flavor, and alcohol. Those are some really important characteristics of your beer. And so that's why we decided to do this. So the first beer that's coming around is the...
All right, that should be the Full Sail Session Black. And that is a black lager that is brewed by Full Sail. It has, if you hold it up to the light, you can take a look at it. And I would say black lager is probably a little less common than what we would normally see in a lager, which is a lighter color. So hold it up to the light and you can see it's got a really nice clear brown effervescent kind of look to it. Would you agree with that, Ginger?
I would agree with that. And color is one thing that we talk about. Don't be a beer racist. Don't judge your beer by the color, right? Because it's always going to surprise you. This is a great beer, too, because Full Sail brews this out of Hood River, Oregon. They have a lot of great beers. They have their regular session, which is one of my favorite go-to lagers. And so when they came out with this, I was really excited because as a beer educator, I wanted to get this in front of people and have them try it and rethink their drink, quite frankly. So go ahead and enjoy that beautiful color. One thing as a consumer, too, learn how to name the characteristics. Like, what color would you call this? That makes you a more confident consumer. That makes you a more powerful consumer. And when you want some education, you can go to any number of breweries, brewers. No brewer will ever turn you down to help you learn beer vocabulary. So cheers to the first color.
Cheers. So another thing that's interesting about color is a lot of people don't understand why the color is in the beer or what it's from. And something that I like to talk about a lot is the color of malts that go into the beer, and that's really where the color comes from. A lot of people associate it with the alcohol that's in the beer, and that's actually false. So when you see a darker colored beer, you're probably going to associate it with a more roasty kind of flavor because the malts are darker, which means they've been roasted for longer. So they can be more roasty, more woody, smoky, maybe even meat-like.
Right.
And they can also be drier as well.
Right, and so those are really common characteristics. We just want to make sure that you learn how to name your color. You learn that colors sometimes lead to certain flavors, but not always. One of my favorite examples is a very well-known beer. You maybe have heard of it. It's called Stella Artois. It's a beautiful color beer, and it's got a pretty significant flavor to it, although some people that wouldn't know that might say, oh, it's just a light-colored beer. Well, if you use the word light when you're describing color, chase it with either light-colored, light-bodied, light flavor. Expound on those to make sure that you're really identifying what light is. So that's our color. Should we move on?
Sure.
All right. So the next letter with the Campa is aroma. And raise your hand if you smell your beer, please. All right. Excellent.
We got a lot of hands in the air. That's great to see.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to educate on because we're such sensory creatures. We smell it. Here, Julia Hertz is in the audience, and I'm going to pull her cross-drinking thing. Raise your right hand if you drink beer, of course. You got to put your beer down for a second. There you go. We don't want any spillage. That's truly alcohol abuse. Leave it up. Raise your left hand if you're a wine drinker, and cross them if you drink spirits as well. We got a lot of crosses. That's right. That's what cross-drinking is about. And that's a great thing because we're exploring all kinds of different flavors from all kinds of different fermented beverages. You're a cross-drinker, right? You had a big X?
Sure am.
That's right. Yeah. So aroma is a really important thing in enjoying your beer. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can even see it in the glasses that we use when we drink beer. The glasses that, and it goes through the range of glassware. They're all shaped in a certain way so that we can include our nose when we're actually drinking the beer as well. But one of the first things that I always do when I pick up a glass, and I never knew this until I started drinking craft beer, is that you can even do a little swirl with your beer if you want. I tend to do that on the table because I can spill sometimes if I don't have it on something solid. But you do a little swirl, and that'll let out a lot of the aroma that's in the beer. And then you want to take it up to your nose and give it a nice whiff. And this is a great example because this is actually Lazy Magnolia's Southern Pecan beer. So we had a gentleman who was asking about this before. It's got a really nice nutty pecan aroma. So it's a really great example of a strong aroma in a beer.
Absolutely. One thing I learned from another great industry friend, her name is Rebecca Newman. She's really smart in the sensory side of beer, and she taught me 2 methods in smelling my beer. And so I've repeatedly passed these along. These are just 2 examples. So there's one called the Bloodhound, where you put your nose in and take a couple of short whiffs. That's the Bloodhound. Or the drive-by, as she calls it. And that's, of course, just going underneath your nose and inhaling while you have it. You should have fun with your beer, and these are really fun methods, especially for beginning beer drinkers. And like Stevie was talking about swirling your beer, that'll refresh the aroma. So if it's been sitting there for a while, you can refresh the aroma of your beer. If it's too tall, hold your hand over it so you don't lose any. But aroma is a really important thing.
Yeah.
So take a nice smell, take a nice taste. Another thing with aroma is there's a couple ways you can actually get more aroma. One is if you just sip while you're not inhaling. Take a little sip now without breathing in. Swish it around, enjoy that flavor. Now, take a sip while you are slightly inhaling. Do you notice a difference? Sometimes there's a significant difference, sometimes it's subtle, but when you breathe in, you can get some more of that conjoinment of your nose and your mouth all in the same time. So,
yeah, I mean, think about when you're eating food, or even when you're cooking food, you can actually taste the food when you smell the food, and this is very similar to that phenomena. You smell the beer, and you can actually taste the beer while you smell it, or it even enhances your flavor receptors.
Right, we chose this one also. Lazy Magnolia was the first post-prohibition brewery in Mississippi. Leslie and Mark Henderson, I know they're here at the festival. Go find them. They're fantastic people, like all the brewers here. And we chose it because they're using a pecan in it, and it's not real common for brewers to use a pecan necessarily. So it's a really kind of unique beer, and so that's we were glad. And we just want to tell you too, we solicited all the brewers and asked them to use their beer, and all of them without fail were really happy to be able to feature these. So if you go to their booth sometime during the festival, be sure to thank them for letting us feature their beers, because they didn't have to do this.
Yeah.
So all right, so we've got the C, we've got the A, we're going to move on to the M for
mouthfeel.
Mouthfeel. That's a great word.
Yeah.
Another word that sometimes people use is texture. It's that tactile experience that our mouth is going through when we have our beer. And the next one coming up for that is the Snake River Brewing Snake River Lager. And you've had Snake River before, Kate?
I actually haven't. This is my first Snake River. Yeah,
well,
so I'm excited.
I think they're way over there.
Guys. Yeah? Oh, yeah. I'll have to check them out afterwards.
Indeed. Indeed.
There's so many booths, it's so hard to get to everybody. But
there's a little bit of an underwriting choice factor here, too. Stevie has Ladies of Craft Beer. I have Women Enjoying Beer. We're both about education, and we wanted to choose breweries that had some female influence. So Full Sail was started by Irene Ferment in Hood River, Oregon. Lazy Magnolia was Leslie and Mark Henderson in Kiln, Mississippi. Snake River Brewing was not initially founded by a woman, but they've got a female intern there named Acacia Baldner. She's going to be a brewer to watch.
Yeah.
She is not done with her schooling yet. She interned at Standing Stone in Ashland, Oregon. She's now with Snake River, and she has been there all summer, and she said, we can't brew enough beer.
Yeah.
And this is a really nice one for mouthfeel, because a lot of people might guess that a lighter colored beer, remember, we don't want to be racist, a lighter colored beer doesn't have a mouthfeel. When you get this in your glass, go ahead and take a nice, reasonable sized sip. Swish it all over your mouth. What are you getting from that, Stevie?
I'm actually getting creamy, which is something that I've not really had too much from a lager before. But I do like it a lot.
Yeah, it's got a really nice foamy head on there, which probably lends to that creaminess, that mouthfeel.
Yeah. And mouthfeel is one of the things, Ginger, that I actually find the hardest when I'm tasting. And I don't know quite why, but I'm always going to it last, and I'm always trying to figure out my descriptors for it. And I need to do a little research on that myself. But creamy is one that I always come to. What would you say you feel on this beer?
It definitely has a nice smoothness to it. I like it because I think it has a pretty nice flavor, even though we're not to flavor yet, that's next. But it's unexpected in the fact that somebody might think a lager is empty. This isn't an empty beer. The other thing with mouthfeel is you can get some of the carbonation experience with that. That's that texture releasing and so forth and so on. So,
yeah, I mean, with lager, usually I would expect something that maybe somebody would call crisp or dry or almost watery, but it doesn't necessarily have to be watery. It could have a lot of flavor, but you might call it watery on the mouthfeel. And this almost has like a nitro feel to it. It's very creamy. It's very milky. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah, and let's talk about nitro for a minute. I'm guessing that everybody in the room has had a nitro pushed beer before. Would that be a pretty safe assumption?
Yeah.
If you haven't, seek those out too. Stouts a lot of times are pushed with nitro. Cream ales are sometimes pushed with nitro. That's one of those are incredible because it changes the mouthfeel and therefore the experience somewhat, which you wouldn't think that a simple change of gas would change something that much, but that also should lend you to think that beer is best when it's taken care of like it needs to be. So the beer is going to give you the best experience when it's been well taken care of. So that's the Snake River Lager for our mouthfeel. I'm going to finish mine. You're going to have to excuse me for a moment.
All right, well, I guess maybe we can move on to the next, which we've already done color, aroma, and mouthfeel, so now we are to F, or flavor. And for that, we've got a beer from Bend Brewing called Outback X.
Yes, and this is Bend Brewing. Has anybody been to Bend, Oregon? A couple of you? There's a lot of breweries there. There's like 8, 11, and it keeps going. It's going to become another one of those cities. It's a gorgeous place. I happen to live in Oregon, so there might be a little bias, but it is a beautiful place, and it's a great place if you enjoy really fresh quality beer. Tanya Cornett is the brewer at Bend Brewing, and she was the World Cup brewer a couple of years ago. And she's walking around on the floor, and Bend is here, and so forth. And
she is absolutely fantastic. If you have any questions about any of her beer, she is more than willing to talk to you. I talked to her for about 15 minutes yesterday on the floor. So, yeah. Yeah,
she's another great one. And all these beers are award-winning beers also. That was incidental, but it wasn't hard because we've got so many incredible beers in this country to be able to look up the details like, oh, it was almost like this, oh, another award winner. This is good. This is a good pattern. So we've got this Outback X, and it's an old ale style, and we chose this one for flavor. So why don't you, before we talk about it, why don't you go ahead and make sure, first smell that beer, do the smelling, the aroma. think about how you would identify that. What kind of descriptors? You know, is it caramely? Is it sweet? But sweet may or may not be a flavor descriptor, because sweet can be different. It can be really sugary sweet. It could be really dry sweet. Those kinds of things. So smell that beer. Take a look at that color. How would you describe it? Check out, give a taste, see what the mouthfeel is. One thing about mouthfeel, make sure you swish it all the way around your mouth, because you've got taste buds all around your mouth, right?
Yeah, and all of the taste buds on your tongue are separated into different sections according to what taste they can receive. So you have sour parts of your tongue, you have sweet parts of your tongue, you have I don't know specifically what
bitter,
yes. Yeah. So in order to get all of that flavor in, you have to make sure that you get it all throughout your mouth, and even you may want to hold it down your throat a little bit too, because sometimes that can even change the flavor.
Right, and you've got taste buds all over. Of course, you've got them on the surface of your tongue, you've got them on the side of your cheeks, you've got them on the roof of your mouth, and you've got them in the back of your throat. So that's why we sometimes perceive things differently also. You know, we kind of chide the wine industry that they spit and they don't swallow. But from a pure flavor and experiential standpoint, there's a good reason to swallow that, because you're giving that beer, once again, the full benefit of giving you all it's got. And my husband, who's a professional brewer, loves it when he burps afterwards. Oh, that was a good hops burp. So, you know, we've got the benefit of that carbonation, which, flippant or not, there can be some after flavors and so forth and so on from that.
Yeah, I forget what I was watching the other day, but it was some show on TV, and the guy was learning to taste beer, and they kept telling him, you just have to keep burping, and that's how you're going to taste your beer, which was hilarious to watch. But, I mean, it is true. Sometimes you'll get even a different flavor when you burp up your beer, you know, so.
Right, indeed.
And that's part of the experience. It's all part of the experience and the fun of it.
That's right. Excellent. We're doing great on time. We've got one more beer coming up, and we have the distinct honor of having this brewer in the room.
Yes,
Look around. Who's a brewer? Who is it? Who is it? We are pleased that Denise Jones from Moylan's is sitting up here in the front row, right up there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Denise, for taking busy. Give her a hand, for Pete's sake.
Thank you very much, Denise.
Denise makes some extremely lovely and yummy beers. Thanks, Denise, for being game. I know how busy the brewers are here at the festival, and she was nice enough to say, you know what, I'll try to pop by. So appreciate that, Denise. Moylan's makes a lot of great beers, a lot of award-winning beers, and I think one of the cool things about the awards here at the GABF, as you may know, of course, this is a judge competition, and these people are their peers. They're judging their own peers in blind competitions. So when you get an award, it's kind of a double whammy in a lot of ways. I mean, there's a lot of really cool feeling to the competition here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Tell everybody what's coming next in your glass for the alcohol factor, that last
All
A.
right, this is the alcohol, which everybody loves in beer. This is Moylan's Hopsicle Imperial IPA. So a lot of people may not understand what Imperial IPA means versus a regular IPA. Imperial is actually a somewhat stronger, hoppier version of an IPA. It all depends on what the brewer wants to do. I've heard of people doing 1.5 times the amount of hops and grains. I've heard of people doing double the amount of hops and grains. But it's usually a stronger version of an IPA that they do brew. So that's why this beer is actually a perfect example for us to have for alcohol.
So we're going to ask Denise a question on the spot. Denise, how did you come up with the recipe for this hopsicle?
Well, actually, I should address the crowd. This beer actually was made at Moylan's before I became the brewer there. And it was meant to be an extremely strong beer, extremely hoppy, 9.2 by volume, and carry, not even measurable IBUs. Just as much as you could put into it. So my boss is the kind of guy who really likes what he considers the obnoxious or extreme beers. And I was a brewer that came along, and I truly believed, and I used to say that there's no way you can balance a double IPA. There's no balance involved in the style. So I had to eat my words and try and go about kind of putting my signature and wrapping my arms around this recipe. And so I feel that not only does it have alcohol, but it's very stealthy alcohol. It hides itself at 9.2. You don't feel like you're drinking a very heavy alcohol beer. And it also has enough sweetness to carry that extreme amount of hop. There's been some 4-way tests through this, and we're about 138 bittering units. But it's really kind of off the Richter, but it's still balanced in its style. And I'm very proud of the beer, and I hope you enjoy it tonight.
Thank you, Denise.
And I was just going to say, that's a good point. We're talking about tasting your alcohol, but a lot of times with a well-made beer, you don't actually taste how much alcohol is in there. So it's always good to pay attention to the alcohol by volume, or ABV, that you would find usually listed with a beer. And as Denise said, this is 9.2%. And do you want to talk a little bit about what alcohol by volume means, Ginger?
Absolutely. I happen to have a bottle of this in my fridge, too. We haven't gotten to it yet, so I'm eager to get home to that. ABV is the common vernacular for alcohol by volume. And I've been talking to brewers this week about that in specific, because there's also technically alcohol by weight. We're not going to go into that because in general you don't need to worry about that. That's more on the technical side of brewing. Watch your alcohol. Beer is made to be savored and enjoyed in moderation. I would venture a guess that no brewers want their beer slammed and just taken advantage of, quite frankly. I mean, and especially something like this. First of all, it's going to knock you on your you-know-what. But second of all, this is a beautiful, multi-flavored beverage that would be an incredible food pairing.
Yes.
With so many different things. I'm sure Denise would have a ton of ideas on what to pair this with. And so a lot of the beers in the United States, on average, are in the 5-6% range. You know, there's pockets where, like, I live in Oregon, and it's just ridiculous, quite frankly, in lots of good ways. But it's still ridiculous in that they're just trying everything that, you know, enters their head. And so there's a lot that are really high alcohol. And I think of the brewery in California, Patrick Roux. Some of my favorite beers also. He makes a 3.2% Belgian Session.
Yep.
3.2. Yep. Talk about drinkability. I mean, and all these beers have different drinkability, but when you're looking at what you're drinking, be mindful of the alcohol, because you want to be a good ambassador for beer, yes?
Yeah.
Thank you for shaking your heads.
Yes.
That's what we all want to represent. That's what we want to extol. You're here because you love beer, and you're exploring it, so treat it right and enjoy it. And so that's what I would say about the alcohol by volume.
Yeah. So one more time, we're taking a look at the color.
Yep.
We've got a nice straw
It's a
color
beautiful
going on.
pale color.
Very clear. Take a whiff.
Aroma.
I'm going to do the drive-by right now. Nice hop flavor. I actually smell Fruit Loops on this beer. I like to talk about my aroma and food because I'm a foodie through and through.
Yes.
So that's how I kind of get my
Food
aroma.
beer's good. We got the M next, which is the mouthfeel. Roll that around. That's good. Making the tongue happy.
And then we got flavor. We got some really good malt and hop flavor.
Yep.
This is a nicely balanced beer.
Yeah, and we're going to sidebar on that term. If you heard the word balance, like Denise was talking about, talk to your local brewer about that. That's an interesting idea, meaning it's really a nice, truly a balance of hoppy and malty. Some are really off the charts one way or the other, but that's part of the flavor component. And the last one, the A, is
alcohol.
A for alcohol.
And as we said, you know, you may not get too much alcohol flavor on this beer because it is nicely hidden, but you just want to be aware of it. And you know, I always take that as a good sign of an imperial IPA when I can't tell that it's too much of an imperial and it really tastes just like a really nice IPA to me. That's when I'm really enjoying it. So. All
right, so that's our campfire, our color, aroma, mouthfeel, flavor, and alcohol. Thank you, all the brewers. Thanks, Denise, for coming. I'm Ginger with Women Enjoying Beer. I do have a booth over on the far wall. Come visit us if you like. There's some pencils and cards back there. Stevie is around.
Stevie from Ladies of Craft Beer, and I have some cards in the back as well.
Indeed. Let us know how we can help you. Enjoy responsibly, and cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Thanks so much for coming out.